Hello. I completely just forgot my own intro, which is hilarious, but welcome back to Snark and Spark. My name is Emily, and today we're doing my books I read in January. So, it is Martin Luther King Day. My husband is gone on a business trip for the week, so it's just me and my boy, and it is in the negatives outside, and we are in a wind chill freeze warning because there's snow. So if you watched my tier ranking, my 2023 books tier ranking that I did, I mentioned that we have gotten a crap ton of snow. And that is still true because I am recording this literally like 2 days after I made that video. So we have been snowed in a lot. And now I'm here on my bed because I was like, I should probably start updating this while it's still fresh in my head and let you know my thoughts. Because I don't know how many books I'm actually going to read this month. So, yay. And I'm in my bedroom and it's nighttime and I don't care. So, sorry that the light is kind of shit, but this is what it is. So, okay. I finished my first book of 2024, and that is The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Pinner. So I listened to this as an audiobook. I really liked the audiobook. It has 2 narrators, I think. 3 narrators. My bad. Yes. Okay. It has 3 narrators because we follow 3 main protagonists in this story: Caroline, Eliza, and Nella. Now, this will be spoiler free because I did enjoy it and I do want to have you go read it. I try not to do spoilers for books that I enjoyed. If I spoil it, it's because I don't care. So ultimately, it's marked as fiction, historical fiction. I would definitely qualify it as like historical fiction / like feminist. And that's totally cool. So essentially we've got 2 different timelines that we are following. So back in like 18th century London, we are in a secret apothecary shop where essentially women who need help with their problems go and visit Nella, who sells well-disguised poisons to use against the oppressive men in their lives. So they leave a note for Nella, and she comes up with a poisonous concoction so that these women can dispose of the men. Because this is 18th century, their storyline takes place like 1790 something, like 1791, 92 kind of thing. So, whoa, right? Women are horribly mistreated and everything like that. Nella is also older. I personally really liked having an older protagonist as one of our main characters. I really, really loved her. She's got arthritis and she's crotchety and she's sad and she's an anti-hero. Like 100%. She is trying to do what she believes is right, even though it is not the right thing to do. She is angry, and I love that. She meets 12-year-old Eliza, who has come to her on behalf of her mistress, because Eliza is a like housemaid, a server girl, and her mistress has sent her there on an errand to help her take care of some things, and they strike up this beautiful friendship, this unlikely beautiful friendship between a 12-year-old girl and this older woman. Sometimes it is easy to forget that Eliza is 12 because of the nature of what is happening in the book. But she is a 12-year-old girl. And then last but not least, we have the other main character, Caroline, who is in present-day London. She is there on what is supposed to be a 10th wedding anniversary trip, but instead she has gone alone due to reasons. And it is how and so the book follows the events over just a couple days, like couple weeks, really, the lives of these three women told in separate timelines, but how they overlap. I don't want to say intersect, but how they overlap. And I found it really beautiful. I found it very enjoyable. I'm going to hold up the audiobook. I'm not going to hold up the audiobook. Just kidding. Of course I do that. This is it. I listened to it. This is what it looks like in the Libby app. Just so you know, if you're like, what is that? This is Libby. So, yes, I really, really enjoyed this. I gave it a solid 4.5. It is not a 5. I really wanted it to be a 5. The premise of it is right up my alley. We've got dark and spooky girls. We've got death. We have murder, stuff like that. But it is not a 5 because of Caroline. So I found myself absolutely adoring Nella and Eliza and their relationship. Not so much Caroline. It wasn't that she herself was a problem. It was just that I found her storyline to fall flat for me. And every time we would have a Caroline chapter, I was constantly checking to see how much time is left in the chapter and to see how long it would take before I could get back to Eliza and Nella. So that just really drew me out, and that's pretty much why I knocked it down half a star, because I love the storyline, I love the plot points, I love where Eliza and Nella went. There definitely, I did not call part of the ending. When I had to put it down with like an hour left, I was like, I have to get back to this book because I have to know how it ends, and I really, really enjoyed that. I just did not like what was going on in Caroline's timeline, in the modern day thing. I don't think she was supposed to be particularly likable. I think she was supposed to be sympathetic, and I did sympathize with her, of course. I just found myself going, yes, okay, we get it. Can we now do something else? Even though I would think it was an accurate portrayal of real life, but she just fell flat. And then her husband, don't get me started on him, can't even remember her husband's name. If you know, you know. All I'm going to say is fuck that guy. And that's pretty much all I have. So solid 4.5 read, 4.5 star read. Do recommend. Check it out. That's all I got for this one. I'll be back soon. Just kidding. I remembered I wanted to mention trigger warnings because there are quite a few trigger warnings that some of them I wish I had known about. With Eliza and Nella, specifically with Nella dealing the job that she does of peddling poisons, right? There obviously are some triggers that come along with that, and they were not mentioned up front, so I just want you to know going in, if you do pick up this book, obviously there is death, there is murder, but we also have triggers that have to do with the oppression of women, the mistreatment of women. There are discussions of child abuse, I don't want to get in trouble for saying it. Maybe I can pop up on the screen. But interactions between a minor child and an adult male, that is highly illegal and inappropriate. There are also very sensitive topics concerning pregnancy and infertility and the loss of an infant, a loss of a child, a loss of a baby, a loss of a fetus, whatever word you want to use. But that topic is in there. There's also extreme gaslighting and emotional manipulation at certain points. So please be aware that there are some really heavy topics along with infidelity. So I think I covered, those are like the major ones. It's death, murder, inappropriate sexual acts performed by an adult to a minor, child abuse, gaslighting, emotional manipulation, infidelity. I think those are like the major ones that I was like, ooh, I should mention. So if those are something that you cannot handle, please protect yourself and keep your own heart safe. That's not what I say. Be easy with your heart is what I say. Now I'm done with this bit. Hi. So it is currently almost midnight, but and I'm in bed. I am physically in my bed because I'm having trouble sleeping. So it is almost Friday, and see, my husband has been gone since Monday on his business trip, and this only happens once a year. This is a once a year. He's gone for a business trip. He's gone for 5 days. He's gone from like a Monday through Friday on this business trip. And so he's across the country. I think I already mentioned this. But anyways, it's not that big a deal. It is a big deal because snow, things like that. It's really cold. We've got a lot of snow. It's just me and the kid. It's just me and the dogs. Right? It's a lot to deal with. But then on top of that, if anyone has experience with this as well, you'll understand if you are used to sharing a bed or a space with someone, it can be really difficult to sleep normally when they're gone. So that's the boat I'm in. I have not been able to sleep like this entire week. I currently have both pets with me, both doggos. Kenduti is right here, and Eisenbean is over there. That's not their actual names. Their names are Kennedy and Eisenhower, but that's what we call them. Anyways, they're chill. They're loving it because they get to sleep in my bed with me, and Dad's not here to kick them out or make them move. But I can't sleep. As in, I'm staying up till like 2 a.m., past 2 a.m. in the morning, and my alarm goes off at like 7 a.m. And I'm up past 2, and then I have to get up and work and function and take care of our kid, and it's just a lot. I am really tired because I could not fall asleep last night. Last night was one of those where I was up really late, and I was tired all day, of course, but then it's like it hits bedtime and I'm wide awake. So I've been reading before bed. I have literally like 10 pages left of this book. This is Inspection by Josh Malerman. I have 10 pages left, and I thought I would finish the book with you because I was reading it downstairs. I was all cozy downstairs. I had my gamepad, and this book, I was like, it's kind of mid, right? Like, it's mid-range. I was like, it's a solid 3. These last little bit, I didn't realize how many pages I had left of the actual story. It has become so unhinged so quickly, and I was not expecting that at all. And I just thought, you know what? And then I saw I had 10 pages left. I was like, you know what? Let's go upstairs. Let's get ready for bed, and we're just going to experience this together. So here we go. What the fuck? What? Okay, so all that's left is just the acknowledgements, which I will read later, but like, Inspection by Josh Malerman. I will have to come back on a rating because I truly don't know how I feel about this. I don't know if those last like 15 to 20 5-ish pages bumped it up for me or brought it down. I don't know. So the whole premise of this, right, is that I read the synopsis, the book cover, and the whole thing is that we have a turret full of boys in the woods have been raised since they were babies, never knowing about the existence of women. And we are particularly following Jay. But there's also a turret in these same woods where we have girls who are being raised without the knowledge that there are men that exist in the world. They are being raised outside of society, outside of the real world. It takes place in America. It's like supposed to be a regular standard America, that they've just taken them out into this deep wooded area in Michigan, essentially, and stuck them in towers. And the whole process, or the idea behind it, is that you are distracted by sexual attraction. And so the people who run these towers decided to conduct this ultimate experiment where if we raise these children in isolation away from each other and never reveal the presence of the opposite sex or gender, then we can create the brightest, the smartest, the most intelligent thinkers of our age. You know, we can have the best mathematicians and engineers and scientists, to the point where they have completely isolated them. They know nothing of the outside world, outside of real life existence. They've brought in, so at the boys, there's only male staff. At the girls, there's only female staff. They brought in, they have teachers and professors, and they have leisure writers. So they brought in authors to write books and novels for these kids that fit with their view of what they're trying to instill, what they're trying to accomplish. I think the important thing to remember is that they are 12. That is very apparent. And it's not like you can easily forget that. It's brought up repeatedly that these kids are 12 years old. And part of this is that they also have these daily inspections where they make the kids undress. They bring them into a checkup room, is what they call it. They make them undress, and then they observe them. They look them over for, they've told them that they're looking for disease. They're looking for, I guess, examples of illness, of disease, of something called rots and V's and placosaurs and moldus. They've made up these imaginary illnesses that they're telling the kids that are very contagious and that they'll die from, and so they have to inspect them every single day. But really, it's just to make sure that they have not come in contact with anyone from the outside. And it's just surreal. So that concept on its own is fascinating, right? And of course, they eventually, on the girl side, we very specifically are interested in Kay. We learn all about Kay, and eventually, of course, they find out about each other. And then it's this downfall of what happens when your entire worldview, your entire mental framework for how you have lived your all the way up to your young life has suddenly shifted, and then breaks, and what happens, and what that does to a young person. Especially, so these are 12-year-olds, right? Hormones, they're going to start going through puberty and adolescence, and their bodies are going to change, their emotions are changing, right? And that's a core element of this, is that they have to address that they know that they're about to go through essentially their sexual awakening, because their bodies are becoming sexually mature, and how to confront that. But like, they're 12 physically, but mentally it's brought up that like they're reading at like a college grade level. Like, that's where their mental understanding is that they are brilliant. They are all incredibly intelligent. So they're mentally ahead, but they are physically 12 years old. And that's a sticking point. I don't want to offer spoilers. I want to keep this spoiler free. And I don't know if I recommend this book or not, but I don't want to spoil it, because if this is something that you become interested in, I don't want to ruin it, because there were definitely things I did not see coming that I really enjoyed. And like, for an example, there is what I don't want to call it a plot twist, but there is a reveal that happens probably about halfway through the book. And I liked that. I feel like a lot of authors wait to do like the big reveal, like 3/4 in or right at the end. There's a reveal like halfway through the book that I was like, I was not prepared for this at all. And I liked that. I liked that a lot. And I feel like he did that a couple times. There were a couple reveals that were just sprinkled throughout that felt really good, and they felt organic, and it felt natural to have them at that point in the story. I did really enjoy the writing. There were a few things logic-wise that it just made me kind of go, huh? And I think if you do read this, I think that's what people would agree with me, that we get about 75% in, and then it felt like logic went out the window. But I think that was intentional, because it's supposed to be, we're structured, right? Everything's going according to plan with these kids. And then we're entering the delicate years. We're entering into this transitory period where they're changing, and they're starting to question things, and they're starting to question these adult figures in their lives and stuff like that. And it then, when I started this and I said that it became unhinged, it literally became unhinged, and it felt like it just went off the rails, where it started to feel kind of weird, but I was with it. I was like, okay, this makes sense. I'm still with it. And then we hit a point where I was like, but why did you do that? That does not make sense. Jay in particular, I don't think that I don't want to call it a spoiler, but like, because he's lying, he's hiding things, he's hiding that he's questioning his feelings, that he's suspicious of dad and what's going on in this collective, in the turrets and in the towers, but he lies about it. He lies that he's having these feelings and these doubts, like he keeps it in, and then at one point he just randomly reveals like the truth, and that felt so out of sorts for literally everything up until this point. The whole book up until this point, he has lied when asked questions, or he has evaded giving the truthful answer. He has, lied by omission. He's gone around it, or he's just kept it to himself. And then at this point, he reveals a truth, and it just did not make sense to me at all. And then at the point where I picked up with you, it just shocked me. It just threw me for a loop. I guess I'd put this at like a 4. I'm gonna have to definitely do a CAWPILE for this, which CAWPILE again stands for characters, atmosphere, writing, plot, intrigue, logic, and enjoyment. And you rate each of these individual things on a scale from 1 to 10, and then it compiles it for you. So characters is, how did you feel about the characters, basically on a scale of 1 to 10. How did you feel about the atmosphere? Could you picture what was being described to you? Were you invested? The writing, did you actually enjoy the writing? Plot, how did you feel about the overall storyline? Logic, did the rules of the world make sense? Did the actions of the characters make sense? I skipped intrigue. It's CAWPILE, not CAWPILE. Intrigue is straight up just like, how invested were you in this book, right? If you put the book down and had to go walk away and do something, did you find yourself being like, I really got to get back to it. I really want to get back to this book. Or were you like, take it or leave it, right? And then finally, so it's plot, intrigue, logic. And then E is enjoyment. And then it's just, did you enjoy the book? And how much did you enjoy the book overall? It compiles all your scores, and then it gives you what your star rating would be on a scale from 1 to 5. So that can be really handy if you are a nerd like me and you like to break those kinds of stats down and actually really see what matters to you and what you enjoy about books. I will drop a link in my description for it. This is a spreadsheet I use. It's a CAWPILE spreadsheet. I did not create this. This was created by G of Book Roast here on YouTube. I'm going to drop a link to her YouTube channel because she has a whole playlist on her CAWPILE, and it's amazing. And obviously it's her stuff, and I want her to take all the credit because this is her baby. But if you're interested in that and you are a book nerd or a book stat nerd like me, check that out. But yeah, but I am going to say before I leave this here, because I do need to go to bed or try to go to bed, intense trigger warnings for obviously huge gaslighting. This whole book is gaslighting. We adults are gaslighting children. There's a lot of manipulation. There's a lot of emotional abuse. Their whole lives are a lie. That's lots of emotional abuse, but also there, obviously, I would say sexism. We against both. That's misogyny and misandry. General sexual content. On that note, I will say, so like there is no on page sex, there is nothing like that, but there are a few instances of, they meet. So this is not a spoiler. That the kids eventually meet each other. It made me kind of squeamish just because I'm a parent of an 11-year-old boy. And I was like, oh, I don't want to think about this. But there are interactions that happen between a boy and a girl that are both age 12 where they are naked. It is not expressly that they have sex or anything like that, but they do look at each other. It does describe that they touch each other and that they kiss, but it does not go into any explicit detail, nor does it actually specify what parts of their bodies that they touched. It was kind of cute. It was kind of awkward for me as a parent of a teenage boy, almost teenage boy, and the fact that I was reading that particular section in public at his jujitsu class. But I could also see it being cute as they're these two preteen kids who their entire lives have grown up not understanding that there's somebody who looks different than them and thinking that they're just different. Like when Kay first sees boys, she's like, oh, these are really weird girls, because that's all she knows. And Jay, when he's like, this is a really weird boy, and they both think that they've been like changed in some way. She's like, these girls have been changed, and they're growing hair on their faces, and their voices are deeper, and their chests are flat. And then Jay looks at her and is like, oh my God, what did they do to you? Because obviously she doesn't have an external thing down there. So he was like, what happened to you? Like, I guess in his head of like mutilation kind of thing. So there is this scene of them like discovering each other for the first time. And I understand that's natural and normal, but that is there just so you're aware. Other things, though, that are more intense that you should know about. There is murder. There is child death. There is murder of a child. There is violence. There is physical assault. There are scenes of children being physically harmed. And then there are some rather intense descriptions and depictions of violence, blood, and murder. So just want that to be aware. That's all I got. I'll see you soon. I'm in my car. So I've had to run some errands, and I was out, and now I'm sitting at my work, and I'm really early. So I thought that I would do a little bit of an update while I'm waiting, because I have time, and I want to talk about this book. Because I finished it, and it's a lot. It's a lot. So this book is Exquisite Corpse by, the author is actually William Martin, formerly known as Poppy Zebright. This was my first foray into the world of extreme horror. Specifically splatterpunk. I've heard of it. I've watched some extreme horror videos and things like that, and have learned about the genre, but I've never read it, and everything I had seen was kind of like, you could read this, you could like start here and just kind of see, because it's older. This was published in 1996. So it is older, meaning things have changed a lot. Envelopes have been pushed way more since then. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to pick this older book. We're going to start here. This book takes place, like in the 80s, 90s, and it is following two serial killers and their exploits, and then how they eventually find each other. So we've got an English serial killer named Andrew Compton, who had been caught for his crimes and was in prison. This is going to be full spoiler, because I don't necessarily suggest that anyone reads this book, especially if this is not in your wheelhouse. So serial killer Andrew is in prison. He has been caught for his crimes. He had murdered like 23 young men and is in prison. He fakes his own death in prison in order to escape from prison, and then flees England, flees the country, and goes to America. He ends up in New Orleans. So we are being dual storylines. We're following Andrew in first person, and then it switches over to third person narrator of the other characters. We are also following Jay Byrne, who is pretty rich white boy of New Orleans, like Southern royalty, essentially. Family born and raised there. They've made their money off of chemical production stuff in New Orleans. So he's very rich. He has a mansion, but he is known as being the weird one. He is the weird, creepy guy around the block. He is also a serial killer. The difference is Andrew likes to love his victims after they're dead, versus Jay likes to eat his victims. I'm not monetized, but there would be no way for me to talk about this if I was monetized. I feel like, how do you navigate these topics? Anyways, they're both doing their own thing. Jay has not been caught. He's clever. He knows that they view him as the weird one in the neighborhood, so he never picks local people. His victims tend to be transient young men who are passing through. They're tourists, or they're homeless. They're unhoused individuals. who theoretically no one will miss. Then we are also following a young Vietnamese boy. He's like 19, 20 years old. His name is Tran, and he is ultimately the victim in this story. He has left his home. He has been kicked out of his family home once his father discovers that he is gay and puts him on the street. He knows who Jay is because of past dealings and connections with each other. He's heartbroken. He's dealing with the breakup of his first long-term serious relationship with a man named Luke. And so he's vulnerable. He's out by himself. He's sleeping on the streets. He's single. He is drawn to Jay. And at first, Jay does not want to hurt him. And then Andrew shows up. Andrew lands in America, and then our stories line up. So then once Andrew makes it, he and Jay meet. They, as they say in the book, they recognize each other and understand that they are cut from the same cloth. And then essentially they decide that they are going to be together and like consummate their love by injuring and killing together. And Andrew has decided that he wants Tran. He wants Tran to be his first victim. Andrew has never eaten his victims, and Jay like convinces him to try, and so they're going to do this together, blah, 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 blah. It's a whole big thing. So that's what happens. And then madness ensues, violence ensues, there is death. I said I was like, why was I protecting the ending? I don't care, I will spoil it. They get Tran, they do kill Tran. Tran's ex-boyfriend Luke shows up at the scene, and he ends up killing Jay. Andrew then freaks out because he's like, you've killed the love of my life. Luke's like, you killed the love of my life. I guess we're even. Andrew does not kill Luke, but instead leaves him to grieve over these bodies. And then Andrew flees, and we are left with an image of Luke like shooting up drugs in his like bedroom or whatever. And Andrew has fled again. He survived. That's how it ends. So all in all, that doesn't seem too bad. However, this book is violent. It is graphic. It is gruesome. Think of a lot of trigger warnings, and they are in this book, okay? We have SA. We have R-wording people. We have death, gore, blood, dismemberment, decapitation, cannibalism, necrophilia. Like, it's all in there. Drug use, the N-word with the hard R. Like, there's so much in this book that is not for the faint of heart. And I definitely had moments where I was going, oh, and was like, what is happening? But then honestly, there were moments where I was in it for the story. The whole book is not just graphic death scenes or graphic sexual scenes. Also, I guess it's of note that all of the characters in this book are gay men. There are no straight characters. There are no female characters. They are all gay men, with the exception of Tran's father, who is a straight male. So take that however you will. I don't care. But so sex scenes are graphic, and they are male on male, and the death scenes are graphic, and they are brutal, and there is no shying away from what happens. But it's not every single page. There is a story, there is a plot, and we are following these two characters, and you don't necessarily, I never felt myself like rooting for them. It wasn't that I was like, I want these bad guys to get their comeuppance. I wanted something to happen. I wanted them to end up fighting each other. Like, but there was a story, and that threw me. I wasn't expecting there to actually be a plot. And because of that, I stuck with it. I read this book. I put it down. I should have been holding it up. I read this book over the course of 3 days. That's it. It was the last book I read in January, and I didn't know how to rate this after I read it. I didn't know how to feel after I read it. I stayed up until 2 in the morning to finish this book because I couldn't put it down and I had to know how it ended. I was more interested in the actual story of what was going to happen to the characters, and that overruled my squeamish feelings about the violence and the blood and all of that. Do I recommend it? No, do not go read this book unless you are experienced in extreme horror, or you were like me and you just could not get it out of your head to try extreme horror. So, I mean, then sure, but I'm not going to recommend this to general audiences. This is not safe for work. It is not safe for anyone, really. With that, in order to get to my rating, which I ultimately decided on a 3.5, to get to my rating, I had to use the CAWPILE system. I have mentioned it before, and I will briefly mention it again, because I did not know how to feel. I did not know how to rate this book. It's not a 5-star read, but and it felt disingenuous to give it a low rating just because it's extreme horror. Like, why is the fact that it's bloody and violent and sexual and graphic, that does not equate low ratings? Because there are plenty of people that read erotica and they read smut and they read books that are nothing but sex, and they rate those highly. So why is this different? And I thought about all of these things. It gave me a 3.5, and I found that I really resonated with that, truly. The characters, yeah, they were really well fleshed out. I could picture each of them, like, of the 4 like main characters in this book, I could picture them 100%. I could see them. I could describe them to you. Maybe not physically, but I could tell you who they were, right? The atmosphere was there. It takes place majority, whatever, in New Orleans. And I was like, yep, I've been to New Orleans. I can picture this. But it got a little lost at points. It got a little muddy. The writing was okay for me. I struggled a little bit with the writing style, the actual way it was written. I didn't care for some of the language. I didn't care for the way it was written on the page. Like, some of that threw me, but the plot was there. I was invested in that plot. I liked the story being told. I had high intrigue. I read it in 3 days because I couldn't stop. I stayed up until 2 a.m. reading it. The logic was there. I understood the characters' motivations. Even if I didn't agree with them, I understood. And then my enjoyment, I was like, did I enjoy this book? Not really. I didn't really enjoy it. It wasn't like I loved it. I don't love it. So yeah, and like, that led me all to a 3.5. Don't read this book. That's all I got for this one. All right, so I'm here to talk about the last book I read in January, because we are now in February and today is my birthday and I'm going to go celebrate. But I wanted to wrap up my reading vlog, and the reason why this particular book is going to be last is because I did not finish it. So the last book is Leave the World Behind by Rumaan Alam, and I did not finish it. I DNF'd it at about 65% because I just couldn't do it. We follow this couple who are on a summer vacation with their 2 kids, and essentially an Airbnb situation in the middle of like New Jersey, wooded area, whatever. Late one night, the couple who own the home shows up claiming that something has happened and like all of New York has lost power and they don't know what's happening. Sorry, my camera's shaking because I'm holding it. But they're unannounced, and then the rest of the book is following just how these 2 families interact, how their lives have intersected, and what that means in the face of essentially the world coming to an end. Now, I didn't finish it, but I asked my husband to tell me how it ended because he watched the movie. So Netflix just released a movie adaptation of it. Same name, Leave the World Behind, starring Julia Roberts, Mahershala. We looked it up because I wanted to say it correctly. Ali. Hello, Eisenhower. You want to be in the video for once? Oh, come here. Oh, thank you. He never gives kisses, so thank you very much. I love you, big boy. I love you. Good job. Thank you. You always get Washington and Kennedy. You never get Eisenhower, so that was a very special cameo. It was for my birthday. Good job, buddy. Thanks. Anyways, and Ethan Hawke. Those are the actors. Those are the only ones I remember. Following them, obviously changes were made to make it more palatable for a movie audience. He watched the entire movie and he told me how the movie ended. I did some research just to kind of see if it lined up, and it was like, whatever. I just could not do it. I got the copy as an audiobook, was listening to it. My hold ran out and I could not renew it because it's right now with the movie adaptation being released. A lot of people wanted it. And the way my library does holds is, at least with like anything, is when you're done, when your time frame is up, you cannot renew it because other people want it. So you can get back in line and put a hold on it so that way you can get it back, but you can't renew it and keep it for as long as you want. And that's totally fine because especially with newer titles or popular titles, it has to be fair. So it went to someone else. I didn't have it for like 2 weeks. And during that time, I just didn't care. I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't like, oh, I really want to get my hands on another copy and find out what happened. I just didn't care. So when I got it back, I sat down and listened to another like hour or so of it. I listened to another full 10%. I lost, my hold lapsed, my checkout lapsed at 55%. When I got it back, I listened to a whole other 10% and got to 65%. And I just did not care. Was not interested in it, did not want to waste my time reading it, listening to it while I could be doing something different. And so I ended it. Essentially what pushed me over the edge was the first married couple. They have couple time, and afterwards, the man essentially finger paints with his own juices, and I just went, no, I'm done. I do not have any interest in continuing this. It was weird and unnecessary, and I just didn't get it. Like that whole scene, it wasn't just that, but it was like that happens. They both get up out of bed, still naked, and proceed to like go outside and walk around this Airbnb. Mind you, the owners of the Airbnb have showed up. They are there, and their own 2 children who are like preteens and teens are there as well. And they just like get up and wander around naked, go get in the hot tub, and then the man of the other couple joins them in the hot tub. Nothing, to my knowledge, further happens like adult content wise, but I was just like, what? This makes no sense. Like, I don't care if the world is ending. You don't just suddenly lose all of your inhibitions like that. You don't change this like integral part of yourself where most of us do not wander around naked because that's not comfortable. So for her to suddenly do that made no sense at all whatsoever. And I was just done. I was like, I'm done. I don't care. And so I ended it and I returned it, and that's that. And I am done. So all in all, I read a total of 5 books. I had a goal of reading 6. I read 5, which I'm pretty pleased with. I've only mentioned 4 in this video because the other book that I read that I do count was Valiant, which is book 2 of the Modern Fairy Tale series by Holly Black. And I'm not going to go into depth here because a lot of you who may be watching this are part of the Magical Stitches group, and that is the focus book for February. So I don't want to talk about it here and spoil anything or give anything away. But I did read it. I gave that a 4.5 out of 5 stars. So that is all I will say here. I do love it. It was a reread. I read it from when I was a teenager. Holly Black is one of my favorite authors. I say this all the time. So yeah. So I read 5 out of 6 books. I have stats because I am a nerd, but I will not be going over those right now. I think I will do them quarterly, and that's pretty much it. My highest rated, my favorite of the month was The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. My least favorite would probably be the one I DNF'd, Leave the World Behind. Yeah, right? By Ruman Alam. He is a Bangladeshi author, which is cool. I read primarily women, and I did read several diverse books that had either non-white characters and or LGBTQIA plus characters, and that's awesome. So yeah, stay tuned. I will have a reading plans for February video coming up very, very soon. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I will see you all very, very soon. Be easy with your hearts.